About this is Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. Good evening. Nice to see you.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me.
There was rioting and organized looting last night, and you're calling to defund the police. Explain that.
Yeah, what we're seeing is obviously an outbreak of incredible frustration and anguish that communities that have been isolated through poverty over generations. And what we have is sort of a typical, very standard, quite frankly, a very tired response to the regularly scheduled pandemic, which is structural racism. And that response has been to increase police presence that has not led to anything of substance to secure communities and to make communities whole. And so the fact of the matter is, because we're spending nearly $5 million a day just on policing, while families continue to experience homelessness, unemployment, lack of access to health care, transportation, you can't take a certain level of urgency to protect capital and the wealthy and not have that same tenacity to provide relief for families that have been devastated through structural racism for generations.
But, Commissioner, by defunding the police department, what are you hoping to accomplish? And how can that make citizens safer? And how could that ultimately, do you feel, stop looting?
You have to have investments in communities. Look, one of the best things you can do to secure communities is to make sure that people have access to jobs and healthcare and education. What we've seen is, particularly within my generation, where individuals who were born in the late 70s, early 80s, 1 in 4 of us were criminalized and sent to prison. 7 in 10 of us went to prison if we did not have a high school diploma. You can't convince me that an entire cohort of people are predisposed to criminalization. And so it's very intentional.
But, sir, what about this generation? And are you suggesting that the money that we put in the police department goes back into the communities?
It's very simple, absolutely. Right now, if we think about the legacy of Harold Washington, the first Black mayor, he set up a structure so that TIF dollars could go into communities that have been underserved. Right now, we have nearly $1 billion right now within our TIF districts. And the last several administrations, from this current one to the previous one and the one before that, they continue to put money into the hands of the wealthy. And so that's why you have playgrounds being built for the wealthy in Lincoln Yards and Sterling Bay, while communities are suffering Great Depression era numbers of unemployment. That's the level of urgency that we have to have. We have to redirect dollars away from a failed racist system and move it into the hands of people who really are trying their very best to survive day to day. And if we can't do that as a government, we are failing to meet the moment that the Black Lives Matter, quite frankly, has called for. Black, white, brown, intergenerational. This generation is approaching this in a very bold, dynamic way to deal with the social inequalities that have existed for far too long. That's the urgency of now. To continue to criminalize people and to chastise folks for being poor is tired and it's old, and we actually need a new direction that really calls for massive investments in neighborhoods like mine, where I'm raising my children in Austin on the west side of Chicago.
And Commissioner, I think the mayor would say that she's making those investments with her Invest Southwest program. But wanted to ask you about these stores. The CEO of the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce told Crain's Business that there will be serious consequences if Chicago doesn't get the situation under control. Do you worry about stores leaving Chicago and the county because they just don't think it's safe?
Yeah. What I worry about is people who don't have jobs and access to food. Look, the fact of the matter is these companies have insurance and assurance, and that this particular administration is doing everything it can to, again, to protect the interests of the wealthy and capital. You can't keep putting profit over people. And as far as Invest in Southwest, it's a very petite approach to a dynamic problem. You can't have Austin and Inglewood competing over a few $1 million when you're sitting on $1 billion right now. The urgency of this moment requires something bold, progressive, and audacious. You can't continue to keep putting money into a failed system that not only criminalizes our existence, but it doesn't keep us safe. There is no direct correlation between the amount of money we spent in policing and secure neighborhoods. We got to do something different, and that's why you have a progressive response to make sure that we're putting dollars in the neighborhoods.
Well, you say that this generation is progressive, they're audacious, but tonight a Black Lives Matter peaceful protester said that looting is a form of reparations. As you said, the stores have insurance. They say it's okay to loot. It shows that they're able to eat. Is that the answer? To loot because it's a form of reparations? To loot because that's how they can eat?
The real answer is, how do we make sure, the question is, how do we make sure that people can eat? Look, no one is going to condone, behavior that quite frankly speaks to a level of desperation.
So you're not condoning looting?
I'm saying that people are acting out of desperation. We don't want a society that is acting out of desperation, but you have to pay attention to the cries that people have.
So you're not condoning looting?
There's no way to embrace that. What I'm saying is, you can't condone the looting that corporations continue to do every single day when they take tax dollars from black, brown, white folks all over the city of Chicago so that they can turn a profit. The fact that Jeff Bezos pays a lesser tax rate than people who are seeking unemployment, that's a wicked system. That type of looting has to be disrupted as well. That's what we're calling for in this moment.
All right, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, thanks so much for sharing your views tonight. Really appreciate it.
Be safe, be well.
Thank you. You do the same.